10 minutes here, and on page 1 in the book, they have the marketing wheel with the functions of marketing. I'm going to kind of share with you the differences between the old book and the new book. The old book had 9 functions of marketing. The new one has 7. If you look at them, some of them are exactly the same, some of them have changed a little bit. This was the functions of marketing around the outside of the wheel: financing, distribution, product service planning, marketing information management, purchasing, pricing, promotion, selling, risk management. If you look in the new book, some of them are exactly the same, of course: selling, promotion, pricing, market planning, marketing information management. Some of them they changed, like distribution, and included it in channel management, which is fine. One of the other things I liked best about the old book is the very first word in the very first chapter, in the very first paragraph, was marketing. Okay? Marketing is the process of developing, promoting, and distributing products in order to satisfy customers' needs and wants. Products include both goods and services. Goods are the kinds of things you can touch or hold in your hand. Services are the kinds of things you can't physically touch. They also added in the new book, in the definition of marketing, ideas, because you can market ideas. Like for an election, that's a big marketing. An election campaign is basically a marketing campaign, and you are more selling an idea. So that changes a little bit in the new book. We will talk about the difference between Costco, the world's biggest wholesaler, and Walmart, the world's biggest retailer. Okay? They don't distinguish that quite as much in the new book as the old one. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit. And we're in a unique situation here with having Costco directly across the street from Walmart, and just some of the differences between the two of them. And as a general rule, a retailer sells to the final consumer of the product. Okay? Wholesalers usually sells it to a retailer, but Costco is a little bit of an exception to that. Okay? So Costco, world's biggest wholesaler, and they don't call their store a store, they call it a warehouse technically. And Walmart, world's biggest retailer. Okay? Flipping over in the old book, it got into the functions of marketing and listed all 9 of them. New book, like I said, is 7. On 7 functions of marketing. On page 5, I'd like to point out this is a little bit unique, where it's got some advertising. Might be the only textbook you see with ads in it, but of course the ads are more just as an example as an actual advertisement. They're a little bit dated. But here on page 5 in the old book, they had the Pepsi family tree. Okay? And it talks about all the different beverages owned by the Pepsi company. It's got, of course, Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Miranda, that's like an orange soft drink, Mountain Dew, Mug Root Beer, All Sports, Slice, a lot. 7-Up is one of them as well. Okay? Now, PepsiCo is a huge company. I don't know if they still own Joy Food Marketing, but at one time they owned Joy Food Marketing, which included Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And there's a good reason they would buy up these restaurants, because in those restaurants they could sell specifically Pepsi products. Okay? So if you notice, you go to those different restaurants, I don't know if they still are owned by Joy Food Marketing, but at one time they were owned by PepsiCo, and they would sell exclusively Pepsi products. So it made good sense. Pepsi would have the money to be able to buy those restaurants, so they'd buy them up and sell just their product. Same thing, they buy a lot of TV stations, radio stations. In our valley, they own KMOK, the Outlaw radio station. They own Good Times 105.1. That way, they can do all of the advertising basically for free. Rather than having to pay a bunch of money to do their ads, they can just buy them up. And then recently, they acquired Frito-Lay Company, which owns Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos, and many other chip products. Okay? I think it's kind of interesting because, well, I didn't realize this until last year's Super Bowl commercial had a commercial with Morgan Freeman, and he was doing, like, I think, Doritos Fire, and then there was the other guy doing Mountain Dew, and they worked. Okay, it might be the other way around, but they worked together. And I thought, this is, in advertising, they have something called cooperative advertising, where two companies go in together. And when I researched it, I found that Pepsi bought that company, so that's why they had both companies in that ad. And it was a fairly long, like a 1-minute ad during Super Bowl. And last year's Super Bowl commercials, 5.24 million. This year they were between 5.1 and 5.3. And Caitlin found that Atlanta's hosting it, and they paid, well, Mercedes-Benz pays $12 million a year to call it the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and CBS paid $3.2 million to have the exclusive rights to broadcast it. So they make all those millions of dollars back in the advertising that they're selling for 5 minutes for 30 seconds. Okay? Now, the other thing in the book that I thought was a little bit different in the old book, it listed a big concept, added value marketing utilities. Anytime you add value to something, that's called a utility, like form utility, adding value by changing its form or shape, place utility by changing its, adding value by the place you sell it, time utility, possession utility, and it has an illustration of that on the utilities, and gives a pretty good explanation of why study marketing, develop marketing skills, understand business, learn interpersonal skills, and perfecting communication skills. In chapter 2 in the old book, the wording for the marketing concept is quite a bit different than in the new book. And it starts chapter 2 on page 15, understanding the marketing concept. How do businesses become successful? They plan for it by following an idea called the marketing concept. That concept states that to make a profit, a business must focus all its efforts on satisfying the needs and wants of its customers. Two things to get out of that. There's a difference between customers and consumers. Customers buy the product, consumers use it. The second thing is satisfying the needs and wants. That's a big concept in marketing. You have to sell something that people either need or they want, okay? If no one needs it and no one wants it, you will not be successful, okay? 4 out of 5 businesses fail within the first 3 years. So people either have to need it or want it, and it's an added bonus if they need it and want it, okay? So sometimes I'm up here drinking a lot of water, and I go, I really don't want to keep drinking all this water, but I need it. Sometimes I might buy other things that I go, I don't really need this, but I want it, and I'm about ready to give out a choice card. Pay attention, okay? I say the 2 best things to market are food and drink, because people need food, people want food, okay? Those are the 2, in my opinion, the 2 best things. I noticed that they took out gum in the new book as one of the things that they say are mass marketed because everyone chews it, and maybe since you're not supposed to have gum at school, they took it out. Identifying your customers. Items are either mass marketed or target marketed, market segmentation, where you break the market down into the market segments, okay? When they break it down by geographics, where people live. Think of geography, demographics, psychographics, and product benefits. And then on page 21, it talks about 2 important things: developing a customer profile, getting to know your customers. You have a profile out there, kind of like if you were on Facebook, you have a profile with all your info. Marketers want to find out that profile so they know what to market you, okay? Reaching your customers, targeting your market. And then this gets into the marketing mix, the 4 P's of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. And I always say you need people in that as well, okay? And then 2 other little things here under target marketing. I always like this graphic, and they left it off in the new book, but it's showing this canoe sport, like deodorant, and they're talking about their target market is athletic minded people. That's who they're going for in their target market. I use the example on this, like with my hoop hitch. When I try to target people, for instance, the place that I try to target them is Spokane, Washington, because they have the world's biggest 3-on-3 tournament there. So I take my hoop hitches up there and display them, sponsor a basketball court, and then that's the place decision. Product decision, different products, some of them that fold up, some of them that are more aerodynamic. Price decisions based on what people need or want, and then promotion decisions, how you're going to promote it, okay? So you want to kind of start with a big target, the place being Spokane, narrow it down. The time would be during Hoop Fest when they're having the big tournament, and then last but not least, the cars that have a 2-inch trailer hitch, okay? That's who I generally try to target. And then there was one other thing in here that they left out in the new book that the old book had, and it was on page 261, and it talked about something we don't have anymore, but advertising in U.S. schools. On Channel 1 here is a little segment on Channel 1, and it's interesting to look at the numbers on here. They're talking about Channel 1 has, they installed TVs, satellite dishes, all to the tune of about $50,000 per school, and they did 12,000 schools in the United States. That would be $600 million that Channel 1 initially spent to come into schools and get their business started, hoping it was going to take off.
Plus paying the people to do it.
What's that?
Plus paying people to install it.
Yeah, plus they're paying people to install it, and your agreement was you would show Channel 1 9 out of 10 days, 90% of the time, so you could skip a day every 2 weeks, and what paid for it was the commercials. That seems like a lot, but here they're saying they would get $200,000 for each commercial. That seems like a lot, but when you figure that they are getting 200 grand compared to Super Bowls, what, 5 million for 30 seconds? That's not such a bad deal. And you have a pretty captive audience, because when we showed Channel 1, every kid had to be watching, and you'd say, watch, you need to watch this, you need to watch this, okay? Where at home, your parents probably aren't saying, hey guys, you need to watch this. You need to be watching the Super Bowl. You gotta be watching these commercials. Probably wasn't happening. Yes, Raymond?
How did they get the money initially?
It was just a group of investors that came up with this idea to start schools, start news program in schools. It was great for the years that it lasted. It was about 30 years. And then the last thing over here on page 263, there is a little banner up here, and it has Make Your Ideas Fly, and it's talking about this company that has aerial advertising, and this is probably some of the biggest advertising you'll see is these banners that they tow behind airplanes, and that's pretty common in big cities where they have the planes flying around with banners behind them advertising. So advertising can be something as big as a big banner being pulled by a plane, or a blimp like the Goodyear blimp, or it could be as small as something as a pen or a pencil or a golf ball. I've collected all these different golf balls up here that all have some sort of advertising on them that, other than the name of the company that makes the ball, they have like Home Depot or DeWalt Tools or different ones where they have some sort of advertising, okay? And these are the ones I specifically collected that had unique advertising on them. And I'm done, and I'm tired of talking. And we'll watch